Painter 2016's Dynamic Speckle is an exciting new addition that enhances the artist's expressive range. As a natural media emulating application, Painter has long sought to mimic the individual hairs found within a traditional brush tip. This is accomplished via both the various brush engines and brush tips or dab types contained within Painter. The Dynamic Speckle, then, is Painter's newest generation of dab type to tackle this task of both generating and managing a bundle of individual points, which in turn can mimic brush hairs. But it goes far beyond the traditional, as we shall see. We're going to begin by taking a look at a very simple speckle brush, and then we'll complexify it by making some adjustments to it. I do want to mention I've got a bit of clutter here on screen. Normally you wouldn't want to work this way, but for showing you all of the controls that are available, we do want to make sure that you can see where these come from. So let's start with the basic speckle. I'm just going to click down here so we can see this speckle. And you can see that each time I click on this, it's showing me the same speckle. Now, where is this coming from? You'll notice that in the dab type, we have Dynamic Speckle Bristle selected. That's where these are coming from. And it is in the Dynamic Speckles panel that you can control what's going on within the individual speckles. Let's take a look at that. First of all, we have count, and if I turn this down, you'll see we get less speckles. If I turn it up, we get more. So you can control the count or the number of speckles within your speckle dab, and we can also adjust the size. So if I turn this up, I'm going to get larger speckles, and if we turn this down, I'm going to get smaller speckles. There is a bit of an interrelationship between size and count, and you'll sometimes see that you can get larger or smaller speckles based on the count, and it's just a vagary of how count and size interrelate to one another. We've also got minimum size, and normally at this setting doesn't do anything. However, if we set pressure and I now draw with it, it goes from small to larger. So we can control the size of the speckles within the stroke via the minimum size and pressure adjustment. Scale size relates if we go back over to size and we set this for pressure and we make our adjustment here. You'll see, first of all, it's now making the whole stroke go from very small to large as I press down, because we are using pressure. And as I turn this scale size up, you'll see that the speckles within the stroke are changing size as well. Let's go ahead and take a look at edges now. You've got two basic styles here, and the one we've been using so far are the hard edges. If I switch this over and draw now, you'll see that the individual speckles have become soft. So that gives us two different kinds of speckle appearance that we can have. I'm going to go ahead and clean this off, and let's take a look at the next one. I'm going to go back to hard edges just for clarity here. We can also, once we've got this set up, play around with speckle randomness. Now, if you just turn this up, you won't see anything happen. You must also enable jitter. Now you can see I'm getting each individual speckle along the stroke changing. Depending on how high up you set size, you'll get either a less aggressive or more aggressive version of that. We can also go down to opacity jitter. Let's turn that up. And now you can see it's actually not only changing the size, but we've also enabled the ability of opacity to change. I now want to show you some controls that influence the way the dynamic speckles work, but they aren't exactly obvious. And the first one deals with color. Now, here's where we are so far with our brush. All the color is the same. If I wanted to make these colors random, I would go down to color variability, and let's just crank that up. And okay, it changes color per stroke, but what if I want each particle to change color? For that, we need to go to the blending palette. And what's happening here is at the moment, amount in terms of the stroke length is turned to 0. If we turn this up, we will now get the individual particles to change. So using a combination of the blending controls and the stroke amount slider, as well as the color variability controls, you can either get the color to change on a per stroke basis, or you can actually get each individual particle within the stroke to change color. Okay, for this particular portion of the demo, I've gone ahead and I've returned to the basic brush that we started with, and I want to show you a couple ways you can influence this. First one I want to show you is stroke jitter. Let's go ahead and open that up. And if I turn this up, you'll see you get this amazing distribution, and it's all controlled by how much you turn this up. If you turn it up even a little ways, you see now, instead of that perfect aligned stroke, we're starting to get randomness going on. The more you turn it up, the greater it's going to become. This is a way to break out of having all of your speckles following each other in lockstep and start to provide some randomness. Finally, we're going to take a look at spacing. Everything I've been doing up to now pretty much shows these speckles following one another in lockstep. However, if we go over to the spacing panel, if you turn this down from where I had it for this particular brush, I can now start to get a continuous brush. So don't think that speckles are only for creating random patterns of individual speckles. You can also use this in the service of creating actual strokes that are continuous based on the spacing itself. Now, another little trick I'll show you while I'm right here is if I turn stroke jitter up just a little bit and turn on this continuous time deposition, now I've got a brush. Let's turn this down. That starts to act very much in the method of an airbrush. This is yet another thing. Using spacing and its controls can add yet another dimension to Dynamic Speckles. So hopefully through this demo you've seen the fact that the Dynamic Speckle is a very powerful brush dab type in Painter, and you can do quite a range of various kinds of looks with it based on the settings both within the Dynamic Speckle panel itself as well as some of these other panels I've shown you. And don't forget, you can go over to the general panel where the actual method and use can make a big difference. Not to mention the blending palette. You've got just so many different ways you can go, but this gives you the basic construction elements of how you can adjust the speckle pattern to your liking.